Let's all get together to welcome a very special person, a Moroccan American journalist in DC who has super unique, interesting ideas. And mainly today, she is going to talk to us about how she is keeping her authenticity, who she is when she does not necessarily belong to the environment she is currently living in, and how she is able to navigate being different person to different people. Sarah, babe, the floor is yours. The dance floor is all yours.
Hi, Shayma. Thank you so much for hosting me and for this space of encounter with your listeners. I'm so humbled by your introduction.
I
and
am humbled by you accepting the invitation.
Aw.
As I told her, she is one of the smartest people I have on my Instagram.
Oh my God. Thank you so much. No, I mean, it's a good platform. I love what you're doing. And I think it's very important to amplify voices of some of the unique women that you're interacting with, and that you have, in your network, because I believe that all of us, we have a story to tell, and it's very important to share that.
Definitely, definitely. So, Sarah, walk us through how did you end up picking journalism and journalist in DC, which is a big deal. How did that start? And was it something that you worked towards, or was it just a coincidence of life?
I don't believe in coincidences. I believe in being intentional in everything we do and in planning our lives and owning our narrative. When I was 5, I soon realized that my dad, when the news was on, that was the most sacred thing that was happening in the house. So everyone needed to shut up and keep quiet. My dad, you
Dad.
know, his holy soccer time of the 8 o'clock Moroccan TV news, right?
Yes.
Um, and then in the morning, the same thing when he was reading his paper, and he would go and read all of it. So I think it gave me the perception that people who make the news and who are part of the news are the most important people. So
Okay.
when they started
Interesting.
asking me, what do you want to be when you grow up? When I was 5, I was like, well, I want to be a journalist. And it was always that. I did have times in my life where I felt journalism was very superficial,
Mm-hmm.
and it was like kind of being in an ivory tower and looking at the news and dehumanizing at times, especially when you deal with lots of conflict in the Middle East and North Africa.
Yes.
So I did take some breaks in my career where I was working in actual international development. I lived in Egypt, I lived in Iraq, I was there during the ISIS war. So I did have some kind of
Okay.
real hands-on development experience. But when people would ask me at the airport, like, so what do you do? I would just identify as a journalist. So I feel like it has always been part of my identity.
Okay. Yeah, as you said, because it takes special people actually to do this job or to wear that hat on. And authenticity, because I mean, as you said, the main subject of this podcast is how you are able to be yourself, where you are in a completely different environment, and not only that, you moved to different, completely different environments: Morocco, Egypt, Iraq, and now the United States. What does that mean to you, and how did you define yourself to realize that, okay, this is who I am, this is the authentic me, and I have to maintain it?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. I don't think authenticity is real. I think it's a construct, anyways. I think also identity is a construct. It's trying to confine, traditions and certain aspects of a human identity within the borders of the modern nation state. is
Mhm.
completely unreal and inauthentic. So I always say that you could not have a cultural fortress and just like stay inside of that.
Mhm.
But I do feel that authenticity in the sense that you stay true to yourself and you always remember where you come from and you're proud of that and you claim it, you show it, you celebrate it, and you transmit it to your children, your friends, and all of that. So I think authenticity is something you carry within your soul, and wherever you end up being is just there with you and within you.
Yes. And Sarah today, what is she keeping from, let's say, from the Moroccan Sarah, from the Moroccan experience?
Oh, I'm very Moroccan. I still write a lot about Morocco. I'm interested in seeing the cultural shifts and some of the trends in music, in how young Moroccans are claiming back their aesthetic, things that we used to be ashamed of, like Arabia and like,
Mm.
the countryside and the animals and the
Yeah.
chaos and all of
Yeah.
that and the cacophony. Now we are like claiming it. We are proud of it. We show it. We film it. It's in our music. It's in our movies. It's in our TV, and we could see ourselves. And I'm very proud to be part of that. And I think being a Moroccan living abroad, I I don't identify myself as an American. I don't think I could be an American, although this is a land of, a melting pot land where
Yeah.
no one belongs here. Everyone is coming from somewhere. But I always would just identify as a Moroccan. I think I feel as a sojourner, someone who's just here on a journey that might end someday, and I'm ready to go anywhere else next, right? But my roots will always remain in Morocco, and I will always go back there.
What do you call home?
Um, I think home is family, is my mom and my dad and my son, and my close relatives. I think
Yeah.
that's home wherever they will end up. I did go, for example, to Morocco many times on business trips, speaking in conferences or doing things. And when I didn't have the chance to meet with my parents and spend quality time with my parents, I did not feel I was home. I felt like, okay, I'm just on another business trip. But when I'm with my family, I think home is those ophthalmic smells that you develop in
Oh,
the
yes.
confines of your memory of your mother's cooking, of the colors and the aesthetics of the houses, and like even the faces of the people, something that other people might see as ugly, but that beauty, that palette that we have in Morocco, in each city, that goes from the ochre to the brown. That's home. It's a mixture of smells and colors and feelings and family, I guess.
That's very beautifully said, Sarah. Vraiment, parce d'abord, quand tu es en train de décrire or describing it, all I could think about هي الدار ديال بوسيزي وديال المويمة.
Oh.
And
Yes.
till now, sometimes when I'm down, what I try to do is to take myself back to those moments. داك الحنين وداك التعناق وداك الفلوس العيد وداك الحليوات ديال العيد. See, it's like a very soft touch to your
Mm.
soul sometimes.
Yes.
Sarah, رجعي بينا اللور and
Okay.
قدري لينا على your first experience when you had to pack your stuff and start somewhere new. You pick any of the countries you lived in, although I will be interested in knowing about Iraq and ISIS time. But you tell us, how did that go? How did that process go? And كيفاش كانت سارة في هذيك اللحظة and التهيئ النفسي وسور بلاس في أمام أمر الواقع. How was it? Walk us through that, because I think our listeners, since most of us, I mean, most of them are millennials, and now we are really scared of sometimes of change. So when we hear it from someone that actually made it and is owning all their mistakes and standing proud with who they are, that is so inspiring.
Oh, okay. I can tell you about the story of Iraq or the story of Egypt. Maybe Iraq.
As you want.
Yeah, sure. So it was 2016, and I was working for the BBC in London. I just felt like at the summum of my career, I had ticked all the boxes. I went to the uni I wanted to go to. I went to LSE. I graduated. I did have a permanent residency in the UK. I could have gotten like, a British passport if I wanted. I was working in, the School of Journalism at that time, or like from my perception. Yet I was miserable. I was miserable because the neoliberal context of the West is very stifling. You are in a box, you take the metro, you go, you work, you come back, you spend money, you pay the bills, and your soul is just empty. And I was working, of course, like in the Middle East and North African outlet, and I was a producer in a TV magazine, and every day I had to pick up the subjects, and every day it was like Iraq, the war, ISIS, Syria, Libya, Yemen. And I just felt dirty. I felt useless. I felt guilty, I think. I think I had what they call now, like a survivor guilt.
Yes.
Thinking that, okay, I'm an Arab. It could have been me. It could have been my country. It could have been my kid. Does my life have any meaning right now? So one day I just applied for the International Committee of the Red Cross, one of the most, like great organizations trying to provide assistance and protection in times of war, and also one of the oldest institutions looking at the law of war and the respect of countries to the law of war and the Geneva Conventions. And they did accept me, but they told me, we're going to send you to Lebanon. And I was like, no, this is not what I want. So maybe I was one of the few people to reject, because they know when you reject them, they never call you back. So I said, well, thank you very much. I like the process. I went through like a long process of like interviews and written interviews and tests and all of that. And I said, no, I'm not going to do this. If you have a position for me in Syria or Iraq or Yemen, please contact me again. And after, I think, 2 weeks, they did contact me and they said, we have a position for you in northern Iraq. Would you want to go?
Hey.
It's not a communication position as I initially applied for. It's going to be purely field work. You're going to do negotiation with the terrorists. You're going to visit the terrorists in the jails and make sure that the international humanitarian law has been respected now that they are no longer fighting soldiers. And you're going to also negotiate with the Shia militias that were trying to liberate northern Iraq. And you're going to negotiate with the Peshmergas, Kurdish Peshmerga, and with the Iraqi authorities, etc. And I was like, yeah, amazing, great, sign me in. And I went there and I worked there for a year, based off Erbil, but the area that I was in charge of was Mosul and some parts of Nineveh that was occupied by ISIS at the time. And we were some of the first movers in every liberated village. Sometimes we would go to villages that were still under ISIS to make sure that at least the kids, they have medicine and milk, and because doesn't take off of being human if you are under a political authority. And I think that experience made me question a lot of the assumptions that I have cultivated as a journalist, and as also through my academic upbringing, that, you know, what we might think is black or white is never black or white. Life happens in the shades of gray, especially when it comes to politics and human geography and anthropology and all of these complex things. For example, I recall a village, so not a village, but so I went once to this prison that no one knows about, like a secret prison in Kurdistan, and I found these, I think, 83 men that no one knows about. Those men are like Sunni Iraqis from Nineveh. When ISIS came into Mosul, the Kurdish Peshmerga invaded their village, asked everyone 14 and up who are males to get into a truck, and they just abducted them. They never gave them a trial. They never asked them anything. They just assumed that they are ISIS militants, and they bulldozered the entire village and annexed it to the Kurdish side of Iraq, of northern Iraq, right? The independent government of Kurdistan, and they just put them in that prison for 4 years, 5 years. I don't know what happened to them now, and I just have nightmares still. I feel guilty that I just left them. I wrote reports, I wrote, you know, briefings to leadership, to people, to make sure that those men were not forgotten. But they still haunt me, I must say. I'll still think about them, about their kids, their lives. Some of them were like teachers and doctors and judges. It's not like your average whatever person. These are like people who matter, but they were just erased from earth. And it just tells you, like, if someone does that to my father or to my son, what would be my reaction? Wouldn't I be tempted by extremism as a reaction? And it just makes you think that actually even the most vilified people that you might think of, including terrorists, etc., a person doesn't just like wake up in the morning and choose to be the bad guys. There is lots of processes that bring about that shift in your life. It's a lot of structural injustice. It's a lot of colonial meddling in our region and fracturing throughout the fabrics of society and making people hate each other, Sunnis, Shia, this, that, Kurd, Arab, that gives birth to a certain individual. And I don't have answers for that, but it's very humbling and very demystifying in many ways.
That's very powerful, Sarah. Because how do you keep your sanity when you go through that? And also, once you see the world from that perspective, it's very hard to go back to the vision you had before. Because as you said, you ask yourself, if it happened to my father or to my child, who will I be? What will I do? And also, isn't it hard to feel safe in the world, Sarah, when you know that sometimes things can change in a glimpse of an eye, like what happened in Iraq or in Syria? It was a long process over the years. But then again, and looking at the state of the world currently, what is happening in Gaza, and you just realize that you never know when things can switch. And especially when it takes so long to give a voice to the people without one, and how justifying the no killing, protecting the human life, that there are innocent lives, the process, how much time it takes, you are just like questioning again and again everything.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think it's a process. You do bear lots of trauma after living through a war, and also I lived through the revolution and a counter-revolution in Egypt and in other places. So you do carry with you that trauma. But I think the experience that I had in my life, the sum of it, and it might sound very cheesy, is just focus on what you can control. Don't focus on what you cannot control, because otherwise it does hurt. I came out of that experience, with lots of autoimmune diseases and stuff, and it was just the way my body was telling me that something is not compatible anymore. Something is not resonating in the same way, and there has been some kind of mental shifts that my body was not accepting. And so I just decided to be the change, to focus on what I can control. Like, if I focus on me being a good individual, writing, leaving written traces and testimonies as a first-hand witness of what happened in these places. If I raise my kid properly, if I raise a boy that's like a productive individual in this society and do my work properly without all the noise, and if everyone else does like me, maybe we could shift the narrative, we could change things. But yes, we do feel small. We do feel that we don't matter sometimes. But things are shifting. I think sometimes we focus too much on the negative and we don't see the positive. And I've been working for over 20 years as a journalist. And I have seen lots of things change. Now social media allows people to talk, to get their voices out there. Maybe the focus that we see now with the Gaza war is just because of this revolution, because anyone with a mobile phone, whatever you spend millions of dollars on propaganda and all of that, you cannot fight it, because simple people could convey their suffering and the reality of what's happening there. And I think there is a lot of things happening. For example, also one thing that I find very fascinating are Gen Zs. And I am a millennial. I am like one of those defeated generations where we've been beaten up and we tried. We did like our Arab Spring, and they just stole it from us because we were not smart already and we were too naive. We were not ready. But now you see Gen Zs are interested in politics. They are interested in justice. They have a higher sense of justice. You see the demonstrations here in the US, for example, in universities and all of that. And I have a lot of respect for this generation because they are not scared. They want to talk. They want to, stand for justice. They want to participate in politics. I remember in my time, I was doing lots of training on political participation. It's like you're holding people from the hand from civil society and taking them to vote, and still they wouldn't vote, and they're not interested, and they have nothing interesting to say rather than regurgitating, the same old ideas as their forefathers. But this generation, oh my God, they're impressive. They're strong. You could not break them. And I'm very proud to see this happening.
Absolutely. I mean, it's for them, it's cool. What I see is that it's cool to follow politics. It's cool to talk politics. It's cool to have an opinion, and they are not afraid to speak up for their minds. And when you look at millennials, oh my God, we've been through all the mess. Like we were sacrificed, literally. And when I'm having conversations with my cousins, like last time, my cousin currently lives in France, and then I told her, "Oh, I've seen what Macron did," and she gave me a whole lesson about French politics and what is happening, and the way she is talking about it, and she's very passionate, and especially the self-confidence. This is what amazes me. I'm like, okay, the world might be a big mess, but at least we are sure Gen Z is speaking their minds.
Yes.
And when you see them in social media right now with everything happening, especially when you look at TikTok, you're like, okay, Okay, that thing is wild. They are not afraid to simply say ايش نوتي يدوز لهم في راسهم genre. They don't care about what is happening tomorrow if they speak today. Sarah, going through everything باسكو مي كنشوف الباركور ديالك, do you realize everything that you've achieved? I don't know if people they tell you that, but I'm just amazed. خاص الجزيرة تجي دير عليك دوكيومونتير.
Oh my God, no.
Really, really. Do you still dream? Because now you've been at the top of your game in different positions. Do you still have dreams? And by this I mean داك الحلم ديالنا حنا ملي تكونوا صغار وجالس في البيت ديالك and you're dreaming about who you want to be when you grow up.
Yeah.
Do you?
I think I have graduated from that. I just realized that, I think it's the age. I am aging. I will be 40 next August. So I think it's that time in your life where you just mature up in terms of your dreams and what you want from life. And I think my dream now is just to live in the countryside somewhere, like in a cabin, and just read and write and paint and raise my kid in peace and prepare for the apocalypse. That's the only thing I think about. I'm gonna become a crazy prepper.
This sounds like an episode of Joe Rogan.
Yeah, could be. Yeah, well, I mean, I do see lots. We were talking about the positive, but let's also be realistic and talk about the negative. Don't you see lots of zombies around us? Like, we are surrounded by human zombies already. Sometimes people don't realize that the apocalypse or the dystopia is now, but we have normalized with it so much that we don't find distance. We don't have enough distance to see it because it came so slowly that it just took out like all aspects of our life. And you see like the stupid people on TikTok, the Moroccan routine اليومي influencers, stupid people like around, or like zombified neoliberal subjects just going to work and workaholics. It's depressing. I don't want to be part of this. And I feel whatever ambition I might have, I'm just a pawn in the system, I'm just feeding the system, and the system is a monster. It never stops. And sometimes I think the wisest thing you can do is just take your distance from the system if it allows you.
This is very strong, Sarah. Having your ambitions, ماشي your ambitions, ولكن هذوك الطموحات ديالك ديال بغيت it's like feeding a monster.
Yes.
And don't you agree that when you go on LinkedIn, you look at all the profiles as if they're crazy?
Yeah. Yeah, you see like a 20 years old person who's already like the vice president of whatever and a CEO.
I'm like, what did that? Is it me?
No, it's not famous.
Et surtout هذاك التمجيد الذات. I'm proud, I did that and did that. And then like you sometimes what happens to me كنكون جالسة اوكي عندي واحد المومون ديال mindfulness طبيعة all is good هذا, and then I check on LinkedIn, I'm like, am I missing on something?
Yes. I know.
What should I go and start running again to follow the machine so that the machine can be happy and then the machine can give me pennies?
Yeah, to feed the beast.
To feed the beast. But it's true. We are surrounded by zombies, and the world, when you look at it, it's really crazy. Actually, when I had when جاني ديال wow, it's like a movie. Say this year's Met Gala.
Yeah. Oh my God, that was horrendous.
Have you seen the costumes?
Yeah, the Hunger Games.
Totally that. It was crazy. Okay, can't be real. No, we are really in a movie.
And it's so interesting how amnesic we can be also, because when the pandemic hit, we stopped caring about those things. We
Yeah.
stopped when stars, they looked so irrelevant. The influencers looked so irrelevant. Everyone was like focusing on their health, on their like inner cell of, you know, family and husband and wife and kids and mom and dad and all of that. And I thought we're gonna change. I thought that was a strong call, maybe from nature or from some whatever Chinese lab. But in
Yes.
any ways, it did slap us. It did make us wake up. It was a good wake up call. For a while, the nature was restoring. People
Yes.
were less greedy. They were less materialistic. We discovered that we could work from home. We don't have to put on makeup and you know, like expensive suits and go and like do all that performative kind of spectacle that we do every day at work. We discovered so much about humanity, and yet look at us now. It wasn't long ago, you know, like 2020. It wasn't long ago, but we are so amnesic. We just forgot about it, and we came back more zombified and more hungry and more crazy, and it's scary,
Yes.
man.
Yes, 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 absolutely. I mean, when you look at us before, it's like it was ages ago, before and after COVID. People, as you said, discovered working from home. Your relationship with the office completely changed, but then it's back again, and I think it's like the social pressure somehow. Because I want to go back again to LinkedIn, because once you open it, you feel that weight on your shoulders, that economical or social pressure. Like, what is your position in this hierarchy when you introduce yourselves to people? How will you introduce yourself to people? Et vraiment, had le truc, عرفتي ترفقت به. Now that it has been a year and a half, I'm no longer part of a corporation. And when I meet, and I'm doing lots of things, but when I meet people, they're like, okay, what do you do in your life? Okay, he like, hi, my name is, je fais ça, كندير هذا البلان, كندير هذا البلان. And because
Yeah.
okay, ايش غادي نقول? Et tu réalises à quel point c'est très abstrait le concept en lui-même.
Well, it goes back to the topic of our interview, right? Like identity. Like,
Who,
is
who
your
you are?
job your identity? Does it give you the satisfaction? Should that be the benchmark to present yourself? Is like, okay, I have a big CV, amazing. Okay, are you happy? Are you healthy? Do you have good relationship with your kids, with your husband, with your parents? How do you feel dans ta peau? You know, like, are you okay? You know, and most of these people are not. They're just fake.
Yes. So if I have to say, hello, Sarah, who are you?
I think I'm just a mom. I think that's the thing I'm the proudest of.
You should, because let me tell you guys,
Yeah,
Sarah,
I'm just a Moroccan mom. Let's just say that's how I would introduce myself.
but a unique mom. Because how old is Yakin? How old is your son?
So my son is 12.
Okay, guys, he's 12 and he already read more philosophical books than you ever read in your whole life. الطاجين اللحم بالبرقوق. He took part in a cooking competition show. يطيب لهم اللحم بالبرقوق عافاكم. أنا عمري ما طيبته، عندي 33 عام. Even Sarah, your approach to because I really have to salute you for that. You have a very unique approach to motherhood. And it's something that I just admire because, mashallah, when you look at the books, the activities, and you see that for you, your approach is that my son is a human and he deserves to have access to all the knowledge that is available to me at that time.
I just feel like, you know, lots of parents, they don't see their kids as full-fledged human beings until they become adolescents, and then something happens in their mind and they start clashing with the idea of, no, I want my baby to stay my baby. I don't want them to grow up. I think what could solve that is to perceive your kid as a full human being with emotions and intellect and interests as early as a toddler, you know.
Yeah.
If there are things that you have discovered in your life and you, with your experience, and you wish you had known before, like I wish I was more exposed to classical music, to concerts, to art, to paintings, to books, to philosophy. Sometimes you don't have to, you know, to understand the Nietzsche to read it. You could just get exposed to it and normalize it and start, you know, exploring it as you go. And that's my approach with my son. I don't think it's good or bad. Sometimes I do feel guilty. I'm like, okay, what if he is so different that he would not fit in his age group? What if he will not be able to make friends his age because what he's interested in and his discussions and stuff are completely different than people his age? And I do feel a bit guilty, but then I also want him to be tough and ready for this society. And I think the society it rewards mediocrity, and mediocre people are ruling us, and mediocre people are becoming rich and influential and in your face all over social media and normal media. That if there is one person I want to save, I just want to save my kid. I just want to make sure that in his formative years he's exposed to beauty, to art, to literature, to music, to anything that I can. And then I don't also see it as an elitist thing, because lots of people, they're like, oh, because you can afford it and blah blah blah. No, it's not. You know, like nowadays kids have access to things online. You could expose them to concerts and to stuff without bearing the costs of expensive things. And I think another thing that's important and that I felt guilty about during the pandemic is I realized that my kid will not grow up on those smells and references that we just talked about before, right? Like when we come home and we smell those smells, and the morning, the bghrir and the rghaif and this and that and the Eid and all the smells, and that especially that we don't live in Morocco. And I felt the responsibility to teach myself things that I wouldn't usually do, like doing a Qur'an or like, I don't know, Mrozia or something, you know, a bit more complex, or Harira or whatever.
Yeah.
And I had to force myself to be that person for him, even if he would not appreciate it now because he's more interested in, you know, what kids like to eat. But he would have some kind of referential in his memory that these things are part of his identity and he's been exposed to it somehow and all of that.
So Sarah is a mom who is helping her son build his own legacy. How do you believe that we can, because you said that you want it, that it's part of your son's identity. How do you see yourself as a contributor? Is it possible to help someone build their identity, or we just offer them, like, are we with all the efforts اللي انت كديري كاع هذاك المجهود واش ماشي انت غير une partie ديال ses souvenirs and his identity he will be building it by himself? Or is there a way actually, and it's actually possible to build someone's identity?
I don't think we can build someone's identity. We could just give them the tools to shape it in a way or another. And even now, my son, we don't agree on everything. There have been books that I loved that he hated, or books that I hated that he loved. And same for movies or for music. Every day he would introduce me to a new symphony or something new or a new painting, or tell me something he read about science and the planets and the universe or whatever that I don't know about. I think parents should be humble and should also allow their kids to shape them and to build their identity. I think our identity as parents is movable and shapeable as well. And whether we want it or not, if we are not rigid and if we listen well to our kids, we can be humble enough to allow them to shape us and to build us as well.
So the identity is evolving.
Yeah, it shouldn't be something fixed and rigid. That's where clashes come from. But if you're humble enough to admit that you don't own the truth and you don't know.
That's a very hard pill to swallow sometimes.
Yeah, it is. And I think it's also transgenerational trauma. It's how we were raised by our parents and how our parents were raised by their parents. And I think I am the person I am today because my parents never really imposed on me anything in terms of, I never, by the way, like I never felt I was a woman until I was like maybe in college.
Oh,
like,
okay.
Yeah. It never registered in my mind. Well, I knew genders, a woman, a man. Yeah, right, great. But I never understood it in that way of a struggling woman that feels discriminated and this is hishoma, this is ib, this is something you could not do because people will talk, or you should behave in a certain way or dress in a certain way, or like in front of your family say this or that. I never felt that. I was always like seated at the men's table. I would eat with the men. I would have their political discussions. No one never qma'ni. And I feel if you don't qma', your kids, especially if you have girls, they will blossom. They will become what they're meant to be. Even if what they're meant to be is to be an amazing mother and a housewife and you don't have any ambition. And that's okay too. But it should be by choice, right? And I feel I kind of don't have that trauma that many people have. That's why I never felt there like borders, like, oh, I could not travel, I could not study abroad, I could not marry a foreigner, or go to a war zone or something, or dress in a certain way, or decide to change a religion or change my body or have a tattoo or whatever. It was never an issue.
So you just prove that the theory is actually right. Kids, when they have freedom of expression in their homes, they always blossom in the most unexpected way.
Yeah, you should just allow your kid to do whatever they're meant to be. If your kid wants to do anything in life, you're just there to facilitate it. You don't own your kid.
Well said. Definitely, you don't own them. Even if you brought them to this world, you don't own them. Sarah, now in the States, you are a journalist. You are doing your job. You are doing your things. You have a life built there. You are a Moroccan in the States, and when you come back to Morocco, who are you?
It's a very interesting question because I feel the dimension of time doesn't work the same in Morocco and here. I feel here there's so much pressure on people to keep evolving and studying and becoming other things and and achieving and running, and we're like running all the time and doing lots of stuff. So while in Morocco, people I feel are more relaxed, and I envy them for that. So when I go back, it's so interesting. It hits me that, people who went to college with me back in Morocco are still stagnant. They're still the same. They talk about the same things. Not everyone, of course, there are people are different, right? But in general, I feel like the dimension time is very, very slow. So sometimes I feel like, okay, I want to go back to Morocco. I want to work in Morocco. I want to retire there or do something or whatever. But then I feel I'm too quick. I'm too fast. I'm too stressed also in a bad way. That things will not compute the same for me. But when I'm there, I'm just listening. I try. I do a lot of talking. I'm a journalist, like we talk a lot. It's a horrible vice that they teach us, and it never goes away. Um, Although right now I don't work in pure journalism. I'm more a communication strategist for a think tank, but we do a lot of talking. But when I'm in Morocco, I don't do a lot of talking. I just smile and listen.
There.
And I want people to tell me what they are about, what they're doing, what's their dreams, what changed. But there's something also I want to share with you, and I think this is very important.
Mhm.
When you leave Morocco,
Mhm.
um, there are like a couple of scenarios that people end up becoming. Either you
Uh-huh.
become like super nostalgic and you keep like watching the Midi and the Deuxième and following the same
Ye-
people on Instagram, and you become like so obsessed by your motherland that you
Yes.
forget to live in your host country. You
Oh.
forget to make friends who are from this country, and you forget to do activities and build something here because you are just like you buy Moroccan time and you don't evolve. And then you have people who are the complete opposite. People who come here or like to Europe or somewhere else, or like even to the Gulf, and they start, yeah, Habibi, yeah, kaza, like, oh, I lived in Egypt for 5 years. I never spoke Egyptian. Uh,
Really?
it's so interesting how some people, they just want to be something else.
Yes.
They want to change. They deny their Maroccanité. They just, yeah, they just do like the blonde, like, Zara Dlouad, and they just become something else. And
So funny.
or when you ask them, they would say, I'm Latino or I'm something else, and they would not say who they are. And yeah, and I think the healthy way with our host country and with our country of origin is to be somewhere in the middle, where you accept that hybridity in your identity, that you have become something else. You're from here, but you're not really from here. You're from there, but you're not really from there anymore. You're like a torn person that could be actually a good bridge between cultures. And that's how I see it. And I see lots of people that I meet here that are Moroccans.
Mhm.
Um, they fall into this toxic nationalism. I need to write about this someday.
Yes, you.
Um, they become so toxic. They're like, anything Algerian is bad. Anything Morocco is the most important country. Anything the US is doing is about Morocco. Like, there's nothing else in life but Morocco. And I think it's
No.
very toxic because
Yes.
people live in an echo chamber where they just consume content coming from people who validate, that feel good, that, oh, Morocco just invented the car, or they have the whatever biggest thing in the world and stuff like that. And it's not bad. It's good to feel, nationalistic and all of that. But what's better is to avoid toxic nationalism. I
Mhm.
think we could all help our country be a better place, if we are both critical and proud at the same time.
Mm. And that this is the balance actually to find. You love your country. You will not be afraid to say what is bad going on in it, and be proud when there are achievements, and also be nationalistic but also realistic.
Yes, true. But like, I ask sometimes myself, if there is a war, would I fight for the US or would I fight for Morocco? And I think the answer is so evident for me that I would always fight for Morocco. This country gave me so much, but as I said, I feel not even as an expat. I feel as a sojourner, as someone enjoying this, paying my taxes, getting my rights. But I'm part of the melting pot, and my identity and my roots are somewhere else.
Wow. Sarah, thank you. Thank you so much for ending on such a beautiful note. You are a forever traveler, right? You are just there enjoying what life is giving you. شكرا
Yes,
بزاف
absolutely.
سارة، فريمون شكرا بزاف على انك اعطيتينا واحد الصورة على التصالح ديال الذات والتسامح ديال الذات اللي عندك مع راسك، باسكو ملي تنجيو تنشوفوا your as you said your resume. Oh my god, people, if you ask some people what are your dreams, some people might want to be at the top of the UN, but you're just here, my book, somewhere with nature, and that's it, because you found the inner peace. Sarah, shukran, 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 shukran بزاف for giving us the time today to share your story. And you are, as you said, you are a mom, you are a traveler, you are a dreamer, you are a journalist, you are Moroccan, but you're also welcome in any other country that you will be living in.
Thank you so much, Shema. Thank you for the opportunity, and I hope my big rant and loud voice conveyed some of my passion. And again, thanks so much. This is really important.
Sarah, you can only reach for the stars, I'm telling you. But still, I want to hear more stories. I still want to hear more stories, but this is for a different episode. More stories about Iraq and Syria.
I will for sure. Thank you so much.
So much. Have a wonderful day.